Hey there, did you know that an ACE score greater than 4 makes you 4 times more likely to experience depression and 12 times more likely to commit suicide? To learn more about what ACE scores are, how they relate to your health, and how to heal them, keep watching. My name is Rebecca, and I am your Vibe Mentor, here to help you raise your vibration so you can live your best life. We all know that it's a very stressful environment out there today. Unfortunately, many people are dealing with trauma on top of the current stressful environment, and in some cases more than one, and that's known as complex trauma. Unfortunately, I can speak from experience. At the age of 16, I moved out of my house trying to get away from an emotionally abusive narcissistic father as well as a physically abusive stepfather. So there is no shortage of examples in that one snapshot of my life. And unfortunately, my childhood was riddled with adverse childhood experiences, otherwise known as ACEs. So an ACE is an experience that you might have through the adults or parents in your life when you were a child. And they may consist of physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, physical or emotional neglect, mental illness, physical violence, divorce, incarceration, or substance abuse. So essentially how they calculate your ACE score is you get 1 point. I hate to call it a point because it's really not something that you win, but you add up 1 point for each of those experiences. And unfortunately mine is 7 out of 9, which is pretty high. 67% of us have at least 1, and 12% of us have 4 or more. So add on top of that being an empath and highly sensitive, an 8 out of 10 on that scale. These were highly impactful experiences for me. So as you can imagine, they have shaped who I am, and this is why I'm here. So I'm very grateful for you so that I can make these experiences worth something positive and contribute something to the world. So I'm really curious about our community. What is your ACE score? You can either reverse the video and listen to that list again. Otherwise, you can Google it and find it on Google. But let me know in the comments below, what is your ACE score? Are you an empath? Are you highly sensitive? Let's come together and let everybody know who you are. And sometimes we have to be seen to be heard. So let me know. I'd like to hear from you. So like I said, it's a very high percentage of people that actually have at least one. So this is not an uncommon thing necessarily. We all carry these experiences with us throughout our lives. They shape who we are, and they shape our physical and mental chemistry. And in what I find most interesting is that they can shape our health as well. There's a very, very high correlation to health challenges and high ACE scores. So some of the statistics, like I said, if you have 4 or more, which is kind of the measure, is 4 or greater is considered high. You are 2.5 times more likely to experience common health issues, 3 times more likely to experience cancer, 4 times more likely to experience depression, and 12 times more likely to commit suicide, which is such a heartbreaking number. There's so many people who are not willing to put it in the comments, not willing to raise their hand and say, hey, I need some help. And it's sad because historically we've been told that our mental state is a permanent thing, that trauma is incurable, that just the general overarching message is that this is a life sentence that we have to deal with. And I'm finding evidence that may not be true. I don't I don't have to a doctorate. I'm not a doctor, but there's neuroplasticity evidence out there that suggests that we can heal our minds, and new epigenetics information coming out about how we can control our genetics. So I'm here to say that I believe there is hope, and that this is not a life sentence. So my first point of evidence that I will present today is Dr. Lipton. He did a experiment with some stem cells, genetically identical stem cells placed in 3 different petri dishes, and the only difference between them was the environment that they were placed in. And each of these pieces of genetically identical stem cells produced 3 different components of the body, if you will. So one produced muscle, one produced bone, and one produced fat. And the only difference between them was the environment, the chemical environment. And essentially, if you were to liken that to the body, our chemical environment is distributed through our blood. And who or what controls the chemical cocktail of your blood? It is the brain. The brain is the chemist. So the fate of the cell is controlled by the conditions of the environment. Our genetic responses are controlled by the brain. The brain is the chemist. So this is fantastic news. We have control over our thoughts. We have control over the images that we hold in our minds, and therefore we have control over the chemical cocktails that are being distributed throughout our body. It's not always easy, but we can start practicing, and it's just like a muscle. We'll get better at it and get stronger. So I'm going to quote Dr. Lipton so I don't get this wrong. The chemistry put into the body by the brain is a direct complement to the picture we hold in our minds. In other words, the mind's image is translated by the brain into chemistry, which then goes to the body to create a physical complement to the image that we hold in our mind. Okay, guys, this is fantastic news. We are not victims of our circumstances. If we can control our mental state, we have the ability not only to prevent illness, but also to heal the illness. It is not the adverse experiences that necessarily predetermine our health fate. It is not even our genetics. While genes can be turned on and off, we now know what's turning them on and off, and we have control over that. So this is amazing news. This is big stuff, if you ask me. So the biggest key is mindset and how we perceive. So what images are we choosing to review over and over and over and ruminate on? And I want to be careful here. I'm not trying to marginalize anybody who's experienced extreme trauma. Certainly, and I won't go into the examples of different things that people can experience, but certainly there are very, very significant issues that are going to be outside of the scope of this video. If you are one of those people, I'm sorry for your pain, and I certainly am here if you need somebody to talk to, but I would highly suggest some professional help. So we don't have to see ourselves as victims. We certainly do not have to give away our power to the perpetrator. We have a choice as to whether or not we view our circumstances as beneficial and as teaching us a lesson. And granted, it can take time. Sometimes we have to sit with things and feel them and understand what it's going to take to work through them. But as we can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, we can start to shift our perspective and view those things as positive. And remember that life happens for us, not to us. We can stop giving away our power, and we can start experiencing positive memories. There are abilities. We have the ability to choose a different perspective. I can look at my father and say, thank you for teaching me boundaries. Thank you for teaching me about narcissism. Thank you for to my stepfather. Thank you for teaching me how to spot someone who's physically abusive. There are so many ways that we can use this to benefit us. And like I said, I'm only here now because of those experiences, offering that to you. So I wouldn't give that up for anything in the world. But I digress. We just need to stop giving our power away. As best we can, we need to shift our perspective, find the benefit. Remember, life is happening for us, and look at what that for us is. What is that lesson, that gift? There's always a message in the mess. Both Rumi and Lao Tzu suggested that we look to nature for inspiration on how to deal with life. So, the suggestion to flow like water, or not to rush and everything will still be accomplished. I thought it was interesting that there's I think it's on TikTok, a trend going around about shaking your plants. And I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not a botanist, but I thought it was interesting because the suggestion is, and it seems logical, that if you shake your plant, you're mimicking of what would happen in nature with the wind. And supposedly it helps the plant grow straighter, and it helps it get stronger roots, and it makes it grow better. I guess it stimulates growth. But it's interesting because if you liken this or use it as a metaphor to trauma, it's shaking us, right? I'm shaking the computer. But that's going to make us stronger. And it's really, really hard to see that in the moment. And I'm not suggesting to anyone that, if something just happened a moment ago or a day ago, that you should find this perspective immediately. But when you can calm down and come back to a more neutral state, try to find the lesson in that and remember that shaking is going to make you stronger. Interestingly enough, shaking is also suggested in trauma recovery, that the nervous system, when it can shake, will shake out some of the excess adrenaline or stress hormones. If you've given a presentation at work and you find yourself shaking, allow the shaking. I know it seems odd, but our society will warm up to these things eventually. But shaking is healthy. It allows your system to kind of work out whatever it's dealing with. So shaking is good in many different ways. Another example coming from nature is palm trees. Palm trees are actually so flexible that they can bend nearly all the way down to the ground. And the reason is when there's a hurricane and they're being shaken and they're being blown down, they would break if they weren't flexible enough. And we can view ourselves like palm trees, that when we are in the storm, in the middle of the storm, that we're being asked to bend, and it's probably putting a lot of stress on us and it's not comfortable, but we are going to bounce back because we are that flexible if we allow ourselves to be and not be rigid. And it's really important to remember not to get stuck. Don't get stuck in the past. There's going to be a time where we need to process and think through things, but then there's going to be a time when it's time to let go, and it's time to shift the perspective and stop viewing the experience as what it may have been and start viewing it as what it could be. And again, I'm just going to say it again because it's so important. I am not marginalizing severe trauma. If you need help, please reach out to someone who is specializing in PTSD. I am not a therapist. I am a strategic intervention coach, so I can help you when you get through some of the initial shock and trauma. If you're at a point where you can start to work on the mindset, you're ready to start shifting your perspective, find the limiting beliefs, and find new thought patterns, I'm able to assist with that. But the point is, don't try to do it alone. You need help. You've got to do this with someone who can hold your hand. And you need a coach. You need someone in your corner. You need someone to remind you that you're loved. You need someone to remind you that you are strong and capable. We are all resilient. It is a choice that we can choose to say, I'm either going to let this take me down or I'm going to let this make me stronger. And you will be a powerhouse if you can work through it, but don't do it alone. I also have a course on overcoming depression linked below if that's something you're working through and prefer to go that route. In the meantime, things that you can do to start working through the healing process. I would first suggest exercise, yoga in particular. The book, The Body Keeps the Score, will explain why, but essentially everything is housed in the body, kind of going back to your chemist of a brain who's produced these chemical cocktails that get stored in your muscle stores. Everything is in the body. Until it is dealt with, it will be trapped in the body. So you need exercise to work through that. Nutrition, we need living foods, lots of water. Processed foods, fake foods will mess with your hormones. So when you are activated, when you're in flight or fight, your pituitary gland is producing excessive amounts of stress hormones. Those hormones will be exacerbated by the chemicals, the fake hormones in processed foods. So you really need to be careful with that. Plastics is another thing. Try to eliminate plastics, use glass or porcelain wherever you can. And lots of water. And and living foods. And you need to hydrate, refresh, restore, allow your body to push things out. So if you're dehydrated, you're going to hold on to things. If you're hydrated, you're going to release. And then, of course, we've talked about animals and how when they die, they have a lot of those stress hormones in them. So you'll notice that eating that can make you feel more anxious, more anxiety, more depression. So that's not helpful. Supplements, I do always preface when I suggest supplements, because there are a lot of companies that will take advantage and not give you the highest quality for your money. So if you do go the route of supplements, really make sure that that's a trustworthy plant-based source. I highly recommend adrenal support supplements. They have worked wonders for me. But again, make sure you're looking at plant-based, organic, highly reputable companies. B complexes can also help deal with stress. And then, of course, a multivitamin. Meditation is a key staple in all my videos. Cannot go without it. Meditation will obviously help calm your system, calm your nervous system, but it will also calm your thoughts, focusing on your breath, or feeling the wind on your skin, or hearing your doggy scratch keeps you present and in the moment. And that's really what's going to calm the racing thoughts, is really just working on being present and in your body and feeling safe in your body. There's lots of guided meditations out there on YouTube for stress relief, for clearing your chakras. I would suggest root chakra and solar plex chakra, especially to feel safe in your root chakra and to take your power back with your solar plexus. Not sure if I mentioned when I said yoga, but there's also free yoga for trauma, yoga for stress on YouTube as well. Therapy and coaching, again, like I said, you can't do this alone. You've got to reach out, whether it's me or someone else. That's beside the point. You have to get help with this. And I'm not a huge proponent of talk therapy necessarily. Yeah, it's necessary to talk about it, to understand what you're working with, like what's the baseline. But from there, really, you should be talking about what does the memory mean to you? Where do you feel it in your body? What is the story you're telling yourself? What is the belief derived from it? What are the repetitive thoughts you have? Those are the things you should be talking about. What are the blind spots and the things that you need to shift? So therapy is extremely important. I highly recommend somatic therapy as well, where they work with the body and help to relieve wherever that trauma is trapped. Connection with others might sound similar, but it is actually different. You don't necessarily need to talk about it. Go out and shoot the breeze with somebody, talk about the weather, talk about your kids, talk about the gardening, talk about football. It doesn't matter. Just find that connection. Remember that you are not alone. There are people that you can feel safe with. It is safe out in the world. Connection is so, so critical. So isolation can be an important component of healing, but remember that you still need connection. And then 7 and 8 are shifting perspective and choosing a positive attitude, because really those are the things that are going to shift you out of that stuck place and allow you to move forward. So find a different perspective, find the silver lining of that story. Tell a new story. If you've come to that place, if you've done enough processing and you're ready to move forward, how can you tell a new story? If you were going to tell the story to a friend, how would you shift it into a positive state? And then the positive attitude, that just, it matters for everything in life. So yeah. And then remember too, that the stages of healing are the same stages of grief. So if you're feeling denial, anger, bargaining, depression is going to be a key piece of moving through this. Allow those things, sit with them, don't judge them, don't judge yourself. Remember that all of these phases are critical components. You cannot heal without them. So, and they're not always linear. You will move through them. You may move backwards, you may move forwards, depending on Mercury retrograde is coming up, and just allow them. Just like the light shifts, you're going to shift in and out of things. So, and then finally acceptance will come. And that's where you can turn your mess into a message and help others to heal. And again, it bears repeating, Life is happening for you, not to you. So find what gift is in this for you. And then lastly, I just found a fun quote that fit this conversation well and helps us remember how to be, again, at the suggestion of Rumi and Lao Tzu. Be like a tree, stay grounded, connect to your roots, turn over a new leaf, bend before you break, and enjoy your unique beauty. So please like, comment, and share. Keep the reciprocal energy flowing, especially share if there's anyone that you think that might benefit from hearing this information. And as always, you can use the links below to reach out to me. I'm here anytime. Sending so much love, my friends. Namaste.